So in this video I'm going to talk about for loop. What is for loop, how is it used, and what are its application in LabView. So before that, let's understand what is a for loop, and even before that let's understand what is a loop. So the term loop is used when an operation keeps on repeating itself, and the term for loop is used when or rather we use a for loop when we know the number of times we want that operation to repeat itself. So we use a for loop. Like that, there's a while loop as well, in which the number of repetitions is not specified before, whereas in for loop we specify the number of operations beforehand. So let's take an example of using a for loop, and let's try to understand the concept of for loop through this example. So we need to find the sum of cubes of first n natural numbers using a for loop. So the first thing that I'll need to do is I'll create two variables. One would be the input and the other would be the output. So the input would be the number n, which will be coming from the user, which will specify how many natural numbers you want to be cubed, and you want the sum of them. So let's declare a variable. So we use numeric control to declare a input, and we use another variable, and we use numeric indicator in order to show the output. So as this is my input, I'll name it n, and this is my result. I'm going to name it result. So these are our two variables. Now in this block diagram we can make certain adjustments. Now I have the space required for my for loop. Now I'm going to create my for loop in this block diagram. This is the block diagram is where you do your main programming, whereas this front panel is a graphical user interface where the user interacts with this interface. So here we are going to do our programming. So let's start with forming a for loop. So to form a for loop or to create a for loop, we first need to do a right click, and then you after with all these options you have to select structures. And in structures again there are multiple options. You need to select your desired option, that is for loop, since we are dealing with for loop right now. So we'll select this for loop over here, and then to create this for loop we will drag through the screen to create a block like this, a big enough block, so that we can so that it can contain all the variables and gates and all. So let's first understand this for loop. It's what are the things that are there in this for loop. So this thing over here is a symbol. It has a letter n in it, and if you hover over it, it says loop count. So this is basically the maximum number of times this loop is going to run. So it's given by n, and as I said, the user is going to give that number. So we're going to connect this user input with this n, and then there's another symbol down here, and it has the variable I. So this I here is it's called the iteration factor, and it is also the counter. So its value by default starts from 0 and it ends at n minus 1, and it is an integer. So we are going to use this I to first create our n natural numbers. So to do that we will need to increment it by 1. Why do we need to increment it by 1? Because our natural numbers start from 1, as we know, and this I is starting from 0, so naturally we will have to start it from increment it by 1. So to increment it by 1, it's very simple. We do right click and we go to numeric, and we select this increment operator, and we connect it with the iterator. So we have successfully formed our n natural numbers. This whole thing is our n natural numbers, as this I value is going to range from 0 to n minus 1. This whole thing is going to range from 1 to n. So this is our n natural numbers. Now the second step is to cube this n natural numbers. So to cube, I'm going to use a function called power of x. So I'm going to search that function in this search box. I'll type in power. So after typing in power, I get to see a multiple functions over here, out of which I have to select the third one, which says power of x. I do a double click. It gives me an operator. I bring that operator towards my natural numbers. I drag it and I bring it here. Now if I look at this operator closely, I can see there are two inputs. One input has the symbol x and the other input has the symbol y, and if you go to the output, you can see it says x raised to y, which means our x input is our base and y input is our power. So I'm going to connect this natural number to our base input, and since we are cubing our natural numbers, so the power should be 3. So I'm going to insert the numeric constant 3 by going to numeric and then clicking on this numeric constant. I'm going to place it here in this second input, and I'm going to change its value to 3. So our power is 3 and our base is our natural number. So depending on the value of I, we will have the respective cube of the natural number. Now we have cubed all our n natural numbers. Now we need to add all of them. So to add all of them, we will need the add operator. So again we go do a right click, we go to numeric and we select this add operator, and I insert it here in between. You can insert it anywhere. I have just for simplicity I inserted it in between, and then I'm going to take the output from this power operator. I'm going to feed it into this addition operator, and then I'm going to take the output of the addition operator and I'm going to form a feedback loop, and this feedback loop I'm going to feed it back into the first input of the addition operator. So why did we do this is because after every addition we will get a value, so we want to store this value and we want to input it back into the addition operator in order to sum all our cubes of n natural numbers. So for example, if we have I equal to 0, it will give us the first natural number, that is 1. So this will cube it, so we'll get 1 cube over here, and since there's no value initially, it will be 0. It will be 0, so here we will have 0, so 1 plus 0 will be 1, and this 1 will be stored in this variable over here. Like if I is equal to 2, or sorry, I is equal to 1, we will get the second natural number, it will be cubed, we will get 2 cubed over here, and since it has 1 already from the previous value, this variable over here, that will be feeded back into this, and we will get 2 cube plus 1 cube. So this way, as the value of I keeps on changing from 0 to n minus 1, we will be able to sum all our cubes of n natural numbers. So we need to initialize this to 0 like this way by doing a right click and clicking this create constant. So I've initialized it to 0 so that the first input because we know there's no previous value for the first natural number, so this value will be changing as the value we'll get after the addition happens. Now we have got all our sum. We have got the sum of the cubes of first and natural numbers. Now we need to show it at the output, so we will have to connect this through a wire. We will have to use a wire and connect it. I'll connect it using a wire to my output like this. So all the values will be shown at the output, like this value will be changing as I will be changing, so at the same time it will be shown at the result output as well in the front panel. But before that, in order to let this value go to the output, we will have to create a tunnel over here so that this for loop does not disrupt its path. So what I'll do is at this junction I'll do a right click, and we see a tunnel mode over here, and I click this last value. So what this does is it creates a tunnel so that this value can go at the output. So now we are done with the programming. Now we can very well test our for loop and see whether it's working for the sum of cubes of first and natural numbers. So in order to check my for loop, I'm going to feed in a random value over here. Let's say I put in 2. So if I put in 2, the sum of the cubes of first and natural number should be 1 cube plus 2 cube, which should be 9. Let's see if I run it, I get 9 or not. And you can see I've got 9 over here. So this loop is working well. We have successfully built a for loop to calculate the sum of cubes of first and natural numbers. Likewise, we can do various operations using for loop. This was just a small example of using for loop. That's all from this video. Thank you for watching.